Ahead of COP30, analysts are looking to a landmark UAE consensus made at COP28, which aimed to triple global renewable capacity and double energy efficiency by 2030. Now, questions have been raised over whether nations have been able to make any progress on these goals and whether this year's conference will move the needle on commitments for climate action. Now, for more, we're joined by Adnan Amin, who is former CEO of COP28 and chairman of the World Energy Council. He's joining us live from the sidelines of the ADIPEC Energy Summit in Abu Dhabi. Adnan, good to have you on the show. Right now, the growth in renewable energy is strong, but still not quite fast enough to reach COP28 targets. What's the biggest challenge holding us back?
Well, I think we have to recall that it was an agreement that was only made 2 years ago at COP28. It was a very strongly negotiated agreement because it's a very ambitious target. But the fact that all countries in the climate agreement agreed to triple renewables and double energy efficiency by 2030 made it a very, very strong outcome from COP28. Now, what we are seeing is a growing emphasis on renewables as part of the energy transition worldwide, but which is more limited to more developed markets rather than developing countries. And what we've seen last year in 2024, we had a renewables capacity addition of around 580 gigawatts, which is actually substantially more than the year before. We're expecting a higher growth this year, over 600 gigawatts. But if we look at the target and the fact that 2030 is only 5 years away, to meet that target, we're going to have to add close to 1,000 gigawatts a year. Now, I think what's important in all of this is that the direction of travel is clear. We are increasing momentum. More and more renewables are being added to the global power system. The share of electricity that is renewables now is higher than any other source worldwide. Even in countries like Australia, which are coal-producing countries, for the first time this year, renewables exceeded coal in power generation. So the direction of travel is right. We need more momentum. I think the issue that we really need to address is that we are confident that in markets like China, India, and others, especially in Asia, parts of Latin America and Europe, renewables will continue to grow. It's the developing world that will need to have far more infusion of capital to allow them to contribute meaningfully to this target. But I think that we are on track, given how we're seeing momentum increasing in this, to be very close to that target, if not meet it by 2030.
Adnan, the growth in solar and wind, as you say, is in the right direction, but it certainly faces a lot of challenges like the integrating of the power grids, supply chain issues, and as you mentioned, financing. If you had to pick one priority for emerging Asia, what would it be?
I think infrastructure is going to be the key to the future for renewables. We can add capacity very easily. I think it takes 6 months to build a major renewables power generation plant. It takes 10 years to build nuclear. It takes several years to build gas. So renewables is available. It's cheaper than all other power generation technologies today. But the question of integration into the system, management of a grid infrastructure, and distribution of power is going to be really an important issue. And that's equally true in many developed markets. In the United States, for instance, when solar was growing fast, the major issue was the interconnection queues were 2 to 3 years long. Access to the grid was not certain. In Africa, in the UAE, we invested $4.5 billion in African renewable energy as part of the COP28 commitment. And we found that while it was very easy to add capacity, what needed attention was the grid infrastructure for the distribution of this power and the management of this power that was required to be put in place. Now, that is improving because we also have battery technologies that are following a similar cost curve to solar, dramatic reductions in prices. And in more and more markets, solar is providing the possibility, together with battery storage, of being close to base load energy. So I think the prospects look very good. The issue is infrastructure, and the second order issue, I think, is capital and finance.
So things are looking hopeful. Tying into that, your expectations for COP30. I mean, should countries agree on deliverables such as an updated 2035 climate plan?
The response to the nationally determined contributions has been somewhat disappointing, and we're still waiting for some of the big ones. For example, the Europeans still have to come with their NDC. I think what we need to take into account is that we are at a very different juncture in the COP process. We've moved from a negotiating mode into an implementation mode. And the challenge for the COP, in my view, for COP30 is going to how do we transform COPs from negotiations into an international cooperation platform for implementation that can really give a sense of direction, that can create partnerships, and that can allow for the flow of capital at greater scale. The Brazilians are very aware of that. I think that they are making huge efforts to build an action agenda that addresses some of the key issues. And it's not just energy, it's also biodiversity, it's forests, it's agriculture. Adaptation agenda is going to be very big. So I think the test of Belém will be whether we are able to switch the mode of climate discussions internationally into ones of implementation and partnership.
Adnan, you're at ADIPEC. Many leaders there are meeting to talk about cutting emissions, improving energy systems. What are you hearing on the ground? Are you optimistic about any real projects or partnerships coming out of these meetings?
I think possibly the single most important issue under discussion at ADIPEC this year is the integration of AI into energy systems. And it's undoubtable that the advent of AI is going to create much more efficient energy systems across the board. That includes conventional energy and fossil fuels because it allows much more efficient processing utilization. It allows decarbonization of existing fossil sources. But it's also very important in terms of clean energy technologies because managing intermittent technologies on the grid, integrating that with battery storage, integrating that with demand response, AI is going to be an extremely powerful tool to create new efficient systems. So I think that's the most encouraging part. The other question really under discussion here is whether we're talking about energy transition or energy addition. Meaning, are we talking about a transition to clean energy systems, or are we just talking about increasing energy resources for everything across the board? My view is that the future is really about transition, that while oil demand will continue to be strong in the next few years, what we're seeing in terms of technology, electric mobility, battery storage is going to be transformative for the future. And we are going to move increasingly to a clean energy mix. And the real question is going to be, are we going to be able to do it at a pace that allows us to avoid the most serious impacts of climate change in the future?
Adnan, appreciate the context you're giving us about the challenges towards net zero. That was Adnan Amin, chairman of the World Energy Council, former CEO of COP28.